Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, time for a prayer request. Please pray as hard as you can for me by singing along with me, gesturing at your screen, and leaving a dislike on this video. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I am really bummed out about two things during this vacation. I know I shouldn't be complaining so much, but I gotta say it. Number one is that I'm recording this in the summertime, right? Happy 4th of July. And when I began this year in 2025, I made a resolution that I got to get out of the Phoenix area during the summer. Last summer was brutal. I was sick, it was hot, and life was very hostile in Phoenix. Individualistic culture, right? I'd argue in Phoenix they turned it up to the max. But so I vowed to get out of Phoenix during the summer, like almost like I would. The way I was thinking about it was I got to break out of prison almost. I made it. The problem is that Taiwan isn't exactly a good place to cool off. You know, the weather is hot. At least we got good culture here. At least I got away from the culture part. But Taiwan is just hot like hell as well, humid as well. I wish I could have taken two trips. Now I need to update my next year, next summer. I need to take two trips, one to Taiwan, another to somewhere to cool off. I hope to visit Helene Curry. I've been chatting with a distant cousin, granddaughter of Mary Curry, if you could believe it. I hope to visit her at some point. Uh, okay, that's the first thing I'm upset. The second thing I'm upset about is that when I made this trip, I thought hard about something. You see, I used to love to bring everything that was near and dear to me on a trip, right? It was not unusual for me to bring everything, kind of like how a child might bring a bunch of stuffed animals, right? I used to behave like that. I won't get into the details of what I was bringing, but I used to behave like that until I realized something. I noticed that with everything fitting into a small suitcase, every time I ran into conflict, right? So, for example, you always have this one room in a room of eight or six people. There's always this one person who is extremely sensitive to noise, right? I'm not talking about somebody playing music at 2 in the morning. No, I'm not talking about that. But some people feel completely entitled to an entirely silent room, right? And some people just feel really entitled. Let's just put it that way. Now, when everything is fits into a suitcase like that, I feel at ease reasoning with people like that, right? So a couple days ago, I had uh, another roommate who was Japanese, and he there was a little bit of a language barrier. He thought I had said something insulting or something like that, and so he's a much bigger figure than I am. At the other apartment, I had another roommate who complained about noise and all that. And I just find that I'm not afraid to negotiate because I can actually walk out of this hotel, go 2 blocks down, and find another hotel. If I had all my worldly possessions here, those two arguments could have played out very differently. And I know how they play out because I live it when I'm in Phoenix, right? I got to think about how I rearrange my affairs back home in Phoenix. What I'm thinking about, I have a storage unit. I might as well go get a bigger one now and keep most of my life there and treat my apartment almost like a hotel room. I'm thinking of doing it that way. Maybe at best have whatever I'm working on there, and then as soon as I'm done with the art, move it to the storage unit. That way, I won't get into so much tension. I'm a little bit bummed out though because I love having all my stuff near me, but I also love how things are so easy to handle. Give you an idea, I've been I've been involved in a long distance relationship. Today, I might actually have to go out and shop for clothes because I've had so little. Ah, but I really love how I, the rational part of my brain opens up when I have room to walk away, right? Now, the next thing I got to do is make sure I have room to walk away from my job. Not that I want to, but the ability to do that really opens my mind, right? I can't tell you how many disagreements I've had at work that may not have happened had I had $2 million sitting in the bank and I'm only doing this for fun, right? After all, what's so fun about disagreement, right? So I got to work toward that. I really do. Okay, enough about complaining about that. But I also have to have a lighter weight attitude. See, if I could bring my stuff, but not hold so much value to it, and still behave rationally when there's conflict, right? That would be the best of both worlds. I don't know why I hold so much sentimental value. Let me give you an example. 4 months ago, I got into a conflict with my roommate, and now looking back at it, had I not kept all that stuff, what had happened was my roommate's a borderline alcoholic. And I actually moved in with him by chance. What had happened was another friend of mine had set me up on a blind date, and this guy apparently was her ex boyfriend. I know, bad idea, but at the time it seemed okay. Uh, so I moved in with him, and so what had happened was he had some ulterior motives for uh, me moving into that place. For one, he's a scientist himself. He thought that we could work together on something. The truth is, yeah, I might be interested in that, but I didn't have the bandwidth at the time. Just started dating again. I was juggling two jobs, my art projects and all that, and then Trump some tariffs and all. I had a lot going on in my mind, but I didn't realize that until I moved in. Yeah, another bad piece of advice, right? Moving in with somebody who may still have some conflict with some kind of relationship, and not reading the fine print of what this guy really wants. Right? I started out with two bad decisions. Okay, but I moved in, and when he realized that it wasn't a good fit, he let's just say that he didn't behave like a man about that. He oftentimes in the middle of a conflict, he would say, "Why do I even rent to you?" and all that. And in the back of my mind, when I heard that kind of banter, it created a lot of tension because I had a lot of fragile art in there, and I didn't negotiate like a good person either. Let's just put it that way. Picture it this: I know a lot of people don't hold sentimental value toward bismuth art, but picture you have a 3-year-old kid. You're a single parent, 3-year-old kid, and maybe you uh, 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 don't get along 100% with the owner of the place, but there's nothing toxic at the moment, and the owner's joking about how he wants you out tonight. Uh, Even though in his mind it might be a joke, but you're hearing this, you're thinking about your 3-year-old kid, you're thinking about God, they just made some friends in daycare, and you don't want them to be, you don't want that to be interrupted. Picture that, right? That was how I was feeling at the time, right? So when I get home, I'm gonna think about upgrading my storage unit and keeping most of my life there. And so when my roommate says, "Hey, you got to be out tonight," it's not gonna be that big of a deal. Okay, okay, I'll go back to Airbnb and see what else is up there. Right? I wish I could behave like that. I really do. I really do. Just like I did a couple nights ago here, when my roommate was completely complaining about the noise. Right? That was fun. That was really nice. Unfortunately, it meant that I didn't have clothes for the trip. Right? So, I hate that I have to make these trade-offs. All right, leave a comment if you've ever felt at ease negotiating because you didn't have all your bags on you. Right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.